27-0. How is it even possible to be down 27 points and still manage to come back and win the game? Well, a lot has to go wrong and a lot has to go right. But before we get into that, let's talk about how the Jags made history. This is the third biggest comeback in NFL playoff history, and of course it takes the place of Tom Brady's famous 28-3 comeback against the Atlanta Falcons in Super Bowl 51. Brady's comeback is often referred to as arguably the greatest comeback of all time, and I don't disagree. I just wanted to put the Jags comeback into perspective as to how impressive it was, and I'll get into those details later. Anyways, the biggest comeback in the playoffs was in the 1992 AFC wildcard when the Buffalo Bills were down 32 points with 9 minutes remaining in the third quarter, which they ended up winning in overtime. The second biggest comeback in the playoffs was in the 2014 AFC wildcard game when the Colts were down 28 points with 12 minutes remaining in the third quarter. And you may remember Andrew Luck's famous touchdown that he ran off of a fumble. And now at number 3 is the Jacksonville game. A cool fact to point out is the 3 biggest comebacks in the playoffs all came in the AFC wildcard round. Alright, now let's revisit how the Jags dug themselves into a 27-0 hole. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half. The first one was batted at the line of scrimmage. The second one, the receiver was being held on his route and should have been a flag. So I don't really count those as his fault, but they still happened. And then the third and the fourth one were on him. The Chargers also recovered a muffed punt that set them up for a field goal. With all that, the Chargers scored on 4 of the 5 turnovers that the Jags gave them, setting them up 27-0. Now at this point in the game, the Chargers had a whopping 98.5% chance to win the game. So almost 100% chance to win the game, but they still managed to come back and win the game. These were Trevor Lawrence's stats before their first points in the second quarter. He was 6 for 19 for 38 yards, 4 interceptions, a 31% completion percentage, 0 points, and a 1.32 passer rating. Absolutely horrific. And little did we know, after the Chargers would punt to the Jags with 1:49 left in the second quarter, they would go on to score on every possession and would outscore the Chargers 31-3 the rest of the game. Trevor Lawrence's stats from then on, oh, nothing crazy. He was only 22 for 28 for 250 yards, 4 touchdowns, a 78% completion percentage, and a 143.5 passer rating. A complete turnaround for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. But what happened to the Chargers offense in the second half, and why would they only score 3 points the rest of the game? Well, the answer to that is the Jags defense showed up in the second half, holding Justin Herbert to a 50% completion percentage. Now, the Chargers were able to drive into Jacksonville territory 3 out of their 4 drives in the second half, but only got 3 points out of it. The Chargers did have a missed field goal that drastically affected the game, considering the Chargers only lost by 1 point. The Jags defense finally played like the top defense they are and shut down the Chargers. Now, I'm going to pose the question to you all. Is this the greatest comeback of all time? Just think about it, and think about the situation. In my opinion, it's not. But it's second to Brady's 28-3 comeback. Just think about it. Trevor Lawrence was having one of the worst games of his life. Not even in the NFL, in college, in high school, in his life, in his entire career. And in your first NFL playoff game, you find yourself down 27 points to 0, and he completely turned it around. He could have just given up and said maybe next year, but it's a different story to be down 40 points to 10 because at least you have points on the board, but they had none. That's what makes this comeback so great in my opinion. To completely turn the tide on offense and defense and outscore your opponent 31-3, that's what makes this comeback so great. This is one of those moments in the NFL that you will remember for the rest of your life. You will remember exactly where you were, what you were doing, and exactly what happened. And I'll leave you with this. I don't know what this comeback is more about, the collapse of the Chargers in the second half or the Jags comeback. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you all for the support on my recent content, and I will see you all next video.